Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And welcome back. We have with us in studio this morning the Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Jose Abelardo Mai. As we mentioned prior to the commercial break, our discussion will be primarily centered around the agriculture industry and the overall state. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning, Shani. Good morning, Manili. It's a pleasure to be here once again.
No problem. Pleasure having you. Let's talk about the general economic state of agriculture in Belize. How are we doing in terms of production in our primary sectors?
I guess it was last week or last week that the SIB issued their quarterly bulletin.
Yeah.
It was clear that the economy is recovering. Agriculture is taking the lead in the recovery, which is something that we expected, because since our election to office, we have made several changes in the ministry. The first being the restructuring of the Ministry of Agriculture from the previous structure they had to a more programmatic approach, giving responsibilities, roles and responsibilities for key areas. It took us about a month to implement the changes at the ministry, and the most important thing there was that the staff, the technical staff, understood our policy direction and bought into the ideas that we brought to the table. As a result of that, the programs are working, the technicians are in the field, new changes are being made, and the results are verifiable. You can see the results on the ground. You have seen increase in production, increase in productivity. You have seen markets being opened. And so I am happy to report that the Ministry of Agriculture has done well in the last 9 months that we have been in office. We are definitely looking at new commodities, and they're showing at the initial stage, they're showing great success. We just have to keep torquing the engine and again, training our technicians, building confidence in what we are doing. And I think we're on the right track. Everything that we're doing so far is in line with our agriculture policy.
So while sugar will be another topic that we'll delve into, how are we doing with other crops such as bananas and citrus?
Well, let me tell you, and I will say this with all sincerity and honesty, and you are witnesses to this. I think that the last 13 years have been very bad for agriculture. I think it was abandoned. I think it was neglected. Agriculture is a verb. It is something that you do. You don't talk about it. And I think that my predecessor pretty much used to speak a lot about it, but do very little about it. We are totally contrary to that. Agriculture is in the field. Farmers must be in the field, technicians must be in the field, I must be in the field so that I can know exactly what we're talking about. In terms of citrus, you know that for 13 years there was infighting. There was 7 years infighting in the citrus industry. There was disease in the industry, and nobody bothered. Nobody wanted to touch it. Oh, it's cancer. If you touch it, you get worse. Well, somebody has to make the tough decisions. I will be honest with you, this year we had the worst crop in the history of the industry. 1.3 million boxes. We had hoped to be at 2.5 million boxes. It was not like that. It was 1.3 million boxes. For the citrus industry to keep alive, the processing plants have to be at least at 3 million boxes. It means that by October, if we don't do anything about it, the industry is dead. We proposed to Cabinet, and I will tell you that I had to form a working committee led by Hugh O'Brien to look specifically at the citrus industry and what we can do to try to extend the life. Because really and truly, it is the citrus industry is in the ICU. It is intubated. And if we didn't do anything about it, it would have been dead by October. Hugh O'Brien, a renowned agronomist, very balanced, very realistic, he formed this committee, and I gave him specific terms of reference, what we need to do. And he did come back. He managed to get all his stakeholders together, and he came up with recommendations which we tweaked and submitted to Cabinet. Fortunately, Cabinet did accept our proposal after convincing. You know, money is hard to come by these days. The economy is in a mess. We're still recovering from the COVID. We managed to convince Cabinet that we needed $15 million for the citrus industry over 3 years. Okay? The first thing we'll do is try to bring back the productivity to at least 3 million boxes. It means that there will be no major replanting with that money. We are looking only at managing the existing fields that have been somewhat mismanaged because of lack of money, lack of finance. So this $15 million will bring back the production to at least 3 million boxes. In the first year, we reevaluate the investments, because what we don't want to do is to throw bad money, good money behind bad money. Right? We don't want to do that. So we start to lend money through DFC to the producers that have orchards that are bearing, but are not bearing to the maximum, right? So that they can fertilize, they can implement the cultural practices, the management practices, bring back the production, and then we can maintain. We can take it out of incubation and just put it under oxygen, so extend the life while the new fields that are planted with the new varieties that are tolerant to citrus greening start to produce, and that will be moving the production up. I will tell you, Sandy and Marlene, what was very sad is that the reports from the industry is that we lost between 800,000 and 900,000 boxes of citrus. We were unable to harvest it because there was no people to harvest. There was no labor to harvest. And during the peak of the COVID, the migrant labor was not able
They weren't able to come into
to come
the
in,
country.
to come in. And we had no local labor to do the harvesting. So that's a very sad, but very true. We lost a lot of citrus because of that.
But was there an
Unfortunately.
attempt to hire local workers?
We did. Cabinet discussed it a number of times. The problem is that whenever you bring across labor, it's not like they come and they stay until the crop is over. They want to go back and take money to their families.
Yeah.
And this could not be allowed because of the COVID situation. And we don't have the local labor. So that created a serious problem, not only for citrus, but in the banana industry too. Yes, go ahead.
Let me step back for a moment, because I do acknowledge one of the challenges in the citrus industry has been battling the citrus greening crisis, and they've tried to work with people who understand this disease, looking at variants, trying to make it more resilient as well. But there's the other side of the citrus industry, which we also know is a huge issue, which is the bureaucracy of the Growers Association.
Politics.
And the politics behind the scene, and how that has very often stalled the progress of the industry itself. This is not the first time this industry ends up in crisis. We've seen bailouts before. What's being done to be able to fix this part of the problem?
Well, let me tell you, force majeure. When you are faced with no other alternative, the best thing you can do is hold hands and start to sing Kumbaya. I mean, there are so many fractions in the industry. And I will congratulate Hugh O'Brien and his team, because they really did an excellent job bringing the stakeholders together. But first, you couldn't get them into a room without the meeting not finishing right. But this is force majeure. Or you do it, or you die. So some people may not be too happy too pleased, but they are satisfied that this is the way to go. It's either way, I don't know.
I'd like to piggyback on what Marlene has brought forward, though, because in my capacity as a reporter, I have covered numerous stories where the citrus industry is in dire straits. But the most difficult thing for any government to have done was to bring these people together. You have so many strong personalities here.
Absolutely.
Who create their own factions. And a simple resolution can't even be passed.
I agree with you.
Because people start toying with numbers and quorum and this, that, and the third. And try as it may, the government can't go beyond getting them to agree on one simple thing that would begin the process of working together.
I agree too, absolutely. The change of a new government symbolized a lot for these people. And then you have to listen to them. I spent days visiting the farmers, the stakeholders, listening to them. And I said to them that government cannot fix their problem. We can come in and we can create an environment for them, create the policies. That's what happens in any government, any good government. You create the environment, and it's the private sector that runs with it. But I think the coming of a new government, the statements by our government that we are here to work with the farmer, for the farmer, I think that changed the total perspective that people had on the industry. I say, you know what? Government is supporting us. Let's stop this nonsense. And you reach the bottom. You can't go further than that. You either step out or stay in the well. And that is what I think Hugh brought to them. Listen, we have to join hands and get out of this thing. Now, this does not mean that the problem done overnight. It will take some time. The processing plant are in serious financial problem.
Yeah.
But that is a problem that they have to solve. We right now are looking, and a part of the problem is that there's no fruit.
Yeah.
So we begin with, let's get the fruits in. Let's get the fruit in, let's get the production up, let's get productivity up, and then we can start addressing the other things. But if there is no food, there's no reason to have a processing plant, right? So we begin with that. Boosting the productivity of citrus. And then we move to the other matters.
And have you resolved the issue of labor?
We are working on that right now. Minister Courtney is working with his team on that.
So the migrant workers are still not allowed to come in?
They are still not allowed to come in as they would want. They can come in, but they cannot leave.
Yeah.
Right? And you will understand that during the COVID period, we're still in COVID period as a matter of fact, many people remain unemployed during the lockdowns, I should say. And they were unable to pay their migrant status, the fees. Now those fees are still out there. So the immigrant is he doubts if he should go in to the office and try to get his legal status back because he has outstanding. So we have made decisions on that too.
Let me just ask here, because I'm sure people at home are thinking, we're in an unemployment crisis in this country. What attempts has been made to recruit Belizean workers to actually go to the citrus farms and participate in the harvest?
Marlene, you will put me in trouble again. No, I will tell you, the people know that there's a shortage of labor. The banana industry has tried to recruit. The Labor Department has announcements out there online that there are vacancies, so to speak, for citrus harvesters and for banana farm workers. But it's not forthcoming. Sad to say, very sad to say. They have sent, the banana enterprise and banana companies have sent buses to the villages in Toledo. One day the bus comes filled to capacity. Next day only 12 persons come. They don't want to stay on the farms. They return empty. So the companies can't be sending a bus for 6, 7 people in a bus. It's not economic. So it is sad, Marlene.
Is it what they're being paid? Is it the circumstances?
I think, from what I'm being told, that on a very good day, people who harvest citrus can do up to $45, $50. Of course, you have to work for it. It's just like the sugar industry.
Let's go back a bit here. The idea of these migrant laborers coming into the country and are gainfully employed in either of these two respective industries, and the fact that we're talking about remittances, because that's basically what it is, right? You earn the money here and you send back to your families in Guatemala, El Salvador, or wherever within the region. Has the government looked at any other alternatives in terms of assisting them to proceed with the remittance? Because if, in this case, for instance, if you have them come in to assist with the harvesting, you would have them stay here. But instead of them traveling back with the money, perhaps physically, there's some kind of method that can be done to wire the money or to do some other form of transaction. That way you would probably be able to keep the labor here, but get the money out to the respective homes.
I am certain that is something that we can look at, Isani. But you will also understand that many of these people are very poor people.
Yeah.
And we don't even know if they have a bank account.
Okay.
And so that's the situation. But it's a very good suggestion, and we can definitely look at that.
But as you've said, that's only one part of the problem in these two industries. And we dived a bit into citrus. You're trying to get them at minimum level production at this point in time. I hear what you're saying, and it's very important to indicate that to the public, that while this is a private sector industry, the country is dependent on these industries. We have long relied on citrus, banana, and sugar to be main sources of revenue. If they fall short, we all pay the consequences.
Absolutely.
So there is a vested interest by the government. So let's talk about some of the solutions moving forward. I know you had a plan as to what you wanted to do when you came in. You've seen the reality, I know now. So what particular short-term plans are you introducing to kind of revitalize or revive, especially the southern industries?
Well, Marlene, as a matter of fact, my CEO commented me to this the other day. He said, you see, you know, we've been to Toledo and to Stan Creek District so many times looking at different production programs, different projects. You see, and I think that Orange Rock and Rosal is far behind, because Stan Creek and Toledo has tremendous potential for agriculture, tremendous. Look at cardamom. They're exporting cardamom to Guatemala, of course, the informal way. They're doing cacao. They're doing yellow ginger. They're doing ginger. They're doing coconuts in the south. Coconut is a big industry in the south. The citrus is there. Pineapples. This is the record production year for pineapples. I think, if I'm not mistaken, for pineapples, we have 450 acres. We've moved from 1.55 million pounds to 300,000 pounds of pineapples. 300, yeah, 1.5, no, oh, okay, we have 1.5 million pounds this year. That's a record for pineapples. And all this in the south. So my CEO is saying, look, in the north, we only have sugarcane and cattle. We are being left behind. We need some of these projects in the north. But the soil, the water resources, you don't need irrigation. The investments, and the investors are there because of purpose. You know, the land is there, the water is there, you have the rainfall of 150 inches. In the north, we don't have any water at all. We don't dig our well, we don't get production. So there's tremendous potential in the south. All we need to do is to consolidate, ensure we have technical expertise on the ground to provide technical advice to the farmers. Look at Marie Sharps. She has a demand right now for 700,000 pounds of pepper mash. And what scares me, that if we don't get that production from the fields in Sand Creek, we may have to import from Costa Rica, which will be shameful on our part.
And I'm sure Miss Marie doesn't want to do that either.
I hope not.
Because she's so proud of her Belizean product.
Of course. We have produced 1.2 million pounds of fatapas in Orange Rock many years ago when I was an extension officer, right? It means it can be done, but we need to put efforts behind. Our technicians need to be on the ground, and I've said this to them a number of times. Need to be on the ground. Marie Sharp has to honor her contracts, has to honor her agreements. Many of the complaints are that, oh, there's an informal arrangement. When I already have my papers in the field, I can't get it to Marie Sharp, or she will have enough. So the arrangement has to be formalized. And this week, I've asked the cooperative officer who's working on a contract model to look into that, to get those agreements formalized. There is no reason why we should import peppers from Costa Rica when we have so much land and so much people to want to do it.
I'm glad you touched on that. We have a lot of pressing issues to get into, but let me just dive into this since you're mentioning it. A part of the Ministry of Agriculture and what we usually see with the agricultural fair is trying to get the buy-in from more population that moving towards agriculture is a viable business as an entrepreneur. We don't necessarily have that culture, especially in urban areas. I don't know, I can't speak for the rest of the country. What's happening on that level? Because it has to be parallel. There are a handful of agriculture schools in this country. So young people aren't necessarily growing up with aspirations of being a farm owner. But this is also it's a successful business for people who are able to manage it well.
But let me tell you, when you're going to school, primary school and high school, I recall parents will say, if you don't study hard, you go in a farm, you know. They used to view farming as a punishment, right? In Costa Rica, you tell the kid, you know, go to school, you're going to farm, he's happy because he will make a lot of money, right? Agriculture in Belize has become extremely challenging over the last 15 years for a number of reasons. Inappropriate policy, inadequate support, financial and others, lack of technical support, lack of vision, lack of marketing opportunities, increasing cost of goods, cost of production, and all these led to farming being challenging. As a matter of fact, let me tell you a very scary story. Blue Creek is grain producing part of the country. They went down from 33 rice farmers to only probably 6 or 7 rice farmers. The rice production shrunk, the number of people shrunk, and those who remained expanded. That is in corn. Corn again, number of people shrunk, the size remained. But it just shows you that it's becoming more challenging. During the COVID period, the peak of the COVID period, right? If we would have had a very strong and robust agriculture sector, we could have supplied not only Guatemala, but El Salvador with much of our grains. We, in this country, produce all the grain we can consume, plus extra. An interesting thing is that the grain we produce in this country is for animal feed, not for human consumption. In Guatemala, it is totally the reverse. 80% of the corn produced there is for human consumption. 20% is for animal. Here it's totally the reverse. So we are in a strategic position and strategically located in a position where we can trade a lot with Guatemala. Understand, Guatemala is the largest importer of corn in the region from the States. We are only 15 minutes away from Guatemala.
This would be via the partial scope agreement that is in
Absolutely, which Minister Courtney is working with his team. Move forward.
Two things there. You spoke of some of the things that have hindered the growth of agriculture over the past years. And I want to dive into, well, one, you didn't mention access to land for Belizeans who may now take up an interest in farming, and what can be done about that. Because, for example, in communities, as you referenced with Blue Creek, they do have the access to the land to be able to expand their farms. But secondly, let's start off with policy. And one of the challenges is looking at importation, especially of crops that are grown locally. And we have seen and reported on the struggles. I know you stepped in the other day when we had the story from the onion farmers. And this is something that we hear regularly from farmers, that they have the produce, but the imports are being allowed to come in.
Marlene, let me give a little story here. Potatoes in 2020 were 2.6 million pounds. In 2021, it is 3.1 million pounds. Our projections for 2022 is scary. It is at 9.2 million pounds. So from 3.1 million pounds to 9.2 million pounds. Sorry, 4.2 million. From 3.1 million pounds to 4.2 million pounds. That's a 47% increase projections. Mm-hmm. In carrots, from 1.2 to 1.34 to 3.4. That is a 158% increase projections. Onions remain in 2020 2.5, 2021 2.5, 2022 is 3.1. That's a 26% increase. Lettuce is a 148% increase. Now, why you see these increases? Simply because we implemented policy that allowed the producer to market his product totally, entirely, at reasonable cost. When I say reasonable, I will put that in quotes because the last part of the onion crop came out very expensive. And we had to speak to the farmer and say that's not the reason why we avoid importation. We avoid importation so that you can sell a product. It does not mean that you will take that opportunity to increase your prices mm-hmm. and to kill the consumer. Mm-hmm. Right? That is not the reason why we do that. It was the loss of the onion product, but they were selling at excessive prices, high prices. So we were saying to them, control it.
But did their cost of production go up?
The cost of production varies per district and varies depending on your yield. They were saying that they had a very low yield and therefore their cost was higher. Mm-hmm. But right now, all extension officers now are working on the cost of production and we'll have an average cost of production. So we know that the average cost in Belize is this, the average cost in San Carlos is this, the average cost in Cayo is this. Mm-hmm. And we can work with an average and say, listen, we cannot force you to sell cheap, we cannot force you to sell expensive, but we will manage the policy so that you can sell at an affordable price.
What's changed under your watch with import policies?
Marlene, before it was very politicized. Very close friends of the minister had all the access to import permits. Right now, the BMDC is doing most of the importation. Mm-hmm. When you open up to everybody, huge amounts come in contraband and you don't know who's bringing it in. Mm-hmm. At this moment, if we see certain product on the market, we know it's not legal because it does not come with a certain brand. We know it's not being imported by marketing board. Mm-hmm. Now, I have received notes from many ministers, kindly give permit for cabbage to a certain person. And I have said respectfully, I cannot do that mm-hmm. because we have cabbages in Valley of Peace, which our farmers need to sell. Mm-hmm. Lettuce is not of the best quality, right? But we measure that also, we monitor that. Whenever we see the quality is not good, it's the loss of the product, mm-hmm. of the harvest, then we open up, but manage. Mm-hmm. Now, I have great friends of mine who supported me, who come to me daily. Why? Say, you need to give me one permit because only marketing board. And I have said, no, you are my good friend. I love you dearly, but I cannot do that. Mm-hmm. I will not do that. If I do that for you, I have to do it for the next friend of mine. Yeah. And for the next friend of mine. And I will not do that. And we've maintained that policy. And as a result of that, everyone was able to sell their product at affordable prices. Everything was gone. It's gone. Now, this is where we become now.
But it's twofold, though. It's who imports and when they're allowed to import.
Actually, yes, you have to manage both. Who's importing and how much. But let me tell you, we know, and this is where there's some loopholes in the system. Mm-hmm. Our import permits supposed to coincide with customs import permits, right? With BAHA, Bureau of Standards, many times it does not. When you look at what comes in, the amount of licenses you issue and the amount come in, gosh, how is this possible? Twice the amount. This was not taken into consideration what comes in over the river. So again, it is coordinating with customs or good friends, quarantine, BAHA, the police, and the agriculture department. When you run that story with the guys in Bomba, on Saturday I was in Bomba, because I don't like to see the news, agriculture is involved and I don't know anything.
Yeah.
On Saturday morning I was in Bomba, and I said to the family, let me see the onions. And lo and behold, they had. And I went early in the morning to the market to see what they have. And I saw some Mexican onions, and Baja was right there with me. Some people lost their onions.
Was it
How was that?
imported or contraband?
Contraband.
How was that resolved? How was the overall issue? Because I do recall that we did break that story,
Yep.
but how was the overall issue dealt with?
You messed up my weekend, that story. But
No, we'll give you work.
yeah. So our presence is very important at the market. I walk through the market style by style, look at what they have, look at the prices, look at the quality, right? And the farmers right there selling too. And then Baja was right behind me, and then customs right behind me. And we had a meeting with customs brothers, listen, this kind of continue. And it was done. By that day, it was done. And by the following week, everything was gone. Like it's 7 days and all the onion was gone. So it's applying
It's
the policies,
enforcement.
enforcement. But if you don't give a damn about it, it will happen over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And those who buy from the BMDC know that they have to buy from our farmers. If you want to import from Mexico, then you must buy from our local farmers. You see, Mexico has very low costs of production. They have subsidized programs in place. We don't have that. So obviously you can't compete. Your profit margin when you buy from Mexico would be this. When you buy from our farmers, the profit margin is this. So importers, when it's local production time, say, guess what? I don't buy from the farmers. I'll wait. I'll wait till the border open and I start to import, because that's where the money is. But I said, no, you will not get a license from us if you do not prove that you are buying from our farmers. That is first and foremost. And then
That
you can
ensures
come.
the livelihood of the local
Of course,
farmer.
of course, and it moves the economic wheel, and that is what we have done. So farmers are saying
I
now.
have one quick question, and I presume that we're nearing an ad break, but I have one quick question. Can you give us a brief update as to where we are with the farmers in Valley of Peace? I know that Valley of Peace is the heartland for agriculture for Belize.
You're referring to land tenure problem.
Yes.
Yeah. We have met with them. As a matter of fact, they are recipients of one of our projects. The land issue is a difficult one. I'm not the Minister of Lands. I can't speak for the Minister of Lands and his team or his technical team. But I do know that they're in process right now. Actually, they are squatting on land which I believe is not theirs. It's just what I understand it to be. They have written, they had said they had purchased from someone, that someone claimed to have had legal documents. It's not. Now, I think Santander had prepared land for them, give them a piece of land so that they work. I don't know if this company has done so, but that entire area right now is under dispute for land. I can't do much about that. I'm agriculture. It does
you
affect.
collaborate?
Yeah,
Because
of course,
they
of
go
course.
hand in hand.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
We cannot leave them out there. We have to work with the lands department, although the lands department takes the lead on it. But we do support the farmers. They are very good farmers. As a matter of fact, when we cannot grow cabbages in Orange Rock, they're growing cabbages in Valley of Peace. So they're good farmers. They're hardworking, and that problem deserves to be solved.
All right. And I want to get into the big issue on the table right now, because we did want to get those updates, but let's talk about sugar. There is great concern across the country that there is an impasse in the sugar industry. I mean, we can go through, just going through the background, of course, the Cane Farmers Association, BSCFA, one of the largest cane farmers associations, come forward to say that they want to renegotiate their contract with BSI ASR. Now, understanding the economic situation that we're in is one thing. That's what the BSI is asking at this point. And they've also spoken about investments that they have made up to this point and that they are making. But the last time this deal had to be renegotiated, it took the involvement of the Prime Minister himself to get a resolution, because that's how challenging it can be to work out these types of agreements. What's your position on this so far?
Let me be very clear, Marlene. In this particular situation, I wear two hats. I am a farmer. My father is a farmer. My brother is a farmer. My son is a farmer. But I'm also the Minister for Agriculture. I was elected to look not only after the cane farmer or after the sugar mill. I was elected to manage the industry, to oversee the industry. And that is exactly what I have to do. It has to be balanced. Yeah. This government will not allow the farmers to be chanced, and will not allow the millers to be chanced. But both must reach to a safe compromise. Negotiation means that you might not necessarily get everything. You may give up something, and you may earn something. And that is what I hope will happen in this case. I have met with ASR. I have met with BSCFA on its own. I have met with the progressive cane farmers leaders, with the northern cane farmers leaders. The only people who did not show up to a meeting were those from the Corozal Cane Producers Association. For some reason or the other, they never show up.
And what are the other associations saying?
Well, the three associations, BSCFA, Progressive, and Northern, those three I listened to, and they express similar views. BSCFA is the only association that has made it known in writing.
Yes.
There are two associations in the meeting, which was Progressive and Northern, both expressed,
but not officially requested.
verbally,
Yeah.
similar concerns. Again, I say, it was only the Corozal Progressive that was not, Corozal Producers that was not at that meeting. BSCFA seems to be taking the lead in negotiating, in setting the stage for negotiation. BSI has responded saying that they have no interest in changing anything to the existing, except adding, from what I understood it to be, 3 more costs. One cost of throughput. The other one is to declaring a cost which they say is included in the ocean freight, but it was not explicitly written as this cost is for this. It was included in the ocean freight, which is, again, strange, very strange. And they want to extend the contract for 7 years. BSCFA is saying 4 things, more than 4 things, but the 4 most important is that, one, we must share the ownership of sugarcane. As it is right now, once the sugarcane reaches the scale, it no longer belongs to the farmer. They are saying, no, it's not fair. Because if I deliver cane in December, you don't fully pay me that cane until the following year. December, it's 1 year after. You give me payments, but you don't fully pay for it. So I think that we should co-own the sugarcane until you have paid me totally. Which is...
On the surface, it would seem fair. But I'm
Exactly.
almost certain the miller has its own reason as to why it prefers to take ownership up front and complete the payment on the back end.
Yeah. Well, there are different payment formulas across the world. We are stuck to a payment plan for the last 50 years, I think it is, revenue sharing. And again, the term revenue sharing gives a wrong impression of what it is. It's because it's not only revenue they're sharing, you're sharing costs, right? Yeah. So, but when you say revenue sharing, okay, like only revenue you're sharing, no, you're sharing costs, and you're sharing more costs than what you're receiving, because the cost is 65%, right? So again.
So you outlined the first one, co-owning the
yeah,
sugar
that's
cane.
the first
What are
one.
the other three?
The second is that revenue cost sharing agreement. Farmers get 65%, the net strip value, PSI gets 35. Farmers are saying, I want 70, you get 30. And the third one, if I can remember correctly, the third one is,
so there's revenue sharing, co-owning the cane.
The co-ownership or the payment for bagasse. The payment for bagasse, they're saying, you are paying me bagasse right now on the basis of sugar, price of sugar in the world market. Or you say, but you don't use bagasse to make sugar. You use bagasse
to generate
energy. So instead of paying me bagasse on the basis of sugar, pay me the bagasse on the basis of energy that you're getting paid. Santander is another player, major player in the sugar industry, and they have large farmers in the area too. You see, Isani, the days of acquiring information, of getting information, have become easier. The times have become easier. Technology is at our fingertips. There's another sugar mill in the country. The farmers want to know how much it costs to manufacture sugar. Before you couldn't get that because only one company managed it. And if I'm the company, why will I tell you my numbers? Right? There's another company now. Right? So the farmers know exactly what it costs to manufacture raw sugar, to convert raw sugar to brown sugar to direct consumption sugar. They have an idea. So when you look at the figures, you say, well, why are you charging me so much if it only costs you so much? Right? And I'll tell you what is a fundamental problem. That is a total lack of confidence among the stakeholders. The miller and the producer. And there's reason for that. There's reason for it, because when you mislead farmers, not to say you lie to, you deceive them, but when you mislead farmers, right, you lost their confidence. You lose their confidence, right? And to get that back is difficult. Losing confidence is overnight, you know. Trying to regain it.
And I guess that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you to kind of put it into perspective. Minister, is it how do you stay objective in this particular situation, given your history as a cane farmer? And speaking of the very same mistrust that you just explained, there's always been a tense relationship between Cane Farmers Association and the millers. So how do you maintain that objectivity, or can you?
I have to look at the numbers. You look carefully at the numbers. You make comparison with numbers, and you can clearly say, man, something is wrong here. Technology is at your fingertips. I can look every morning at the price of sugar on the market, on the world market, number 11 market. And I can tell you the price of sugar is going up right now. Before you can tell me, oh, I decided I'm selling at world price. And there's no way for me to verify that. Right? Molasses, there's only 2 buyers. 2 million buyers in the world. Santander sells molasses to the same company that BSI sells molasses to. As a matter of fact, the vessel fulls here in Big Creek, and moves here and fills here. So I mean, if one company does not want to make public the numbers, the other one says, I'm prepared to show it. And if there's a big disparity, then there's reason for concern. It's simple. In my view, the problem is not so much the price of sugar, because you can verify that. It is the internal arrangement made for sugar, right? When you, and the farmers have a meeting with Santander, they're meeting with BSI, so they're comparing numbers, and you cannot blame the farmers for doing this. This is part of the research. As leaders of the association, they have to come to the membership and say, listen, we did this research, and this is what we found. Hence, we are saying that this can be improved.
But isn't it, how does it change? Because Santander is under an EPZ.
Well,
and they only export raw sugar.
Raw sugar.
Yeah.
They can sell raw sugar. The price of raw sugar, for example, I think right now, Santander price for raw sugar that they pay their farmers is at $54.56, right? They sell that FOB, Big Creek. The last payment for cane farmers in the north, the highest group received $51.26, and the lowest was $47.60. So there's a difference there of $3 and change. So $3 and change for a cane farmer is a lot, because in 1,000 tons, it's $3,000, right? Now,
but what's the percentage of farms that Santander owns versus what ASR BSI owns? Because it sounds very much that you're kind of opening the market to both millers at this time. That's what I'm getting from the arrangement. That seems to be.
Well, that is right now we are modernizing the Sugar Industry Act. That act has been there for 50 years, right? And if the past government has said, and rightfully so, you are free to associate or not to associate. That was the last movement, last shift in the Sugar Industry Act. When they were discussing the same agreement, Prime Minister said, okay, if you don't want to sell or sign the agreement, we break up association, and that association can start to deliver. That was what forced the farmers to sign the agreement. Well, we are not going to do that.
But then that splintered the association into like 5 different.
Yeah, but still one main one. There's
one
the
main,
biggest
one main BSCFA. But coming back to what you said, Marlene, the government plays a very important role, but it has to be balanced. This agreement is between the farmers and the miller, not between the government and them. But we have to oversee and ensure in the best interest of the industry and the country.
Yeah, it comes right back to the question I raised earlier about citrus. Yes, it's a private sector arrangement, but a key driver for our economy. And I guess that's the question from sitting on the outside. Is this the right time? If we can reflect back to 7 years ago, to the drawn out negotiations and even protests against the finalization of this deal, that it took the Prime Minister to intervene, at that time Prime Minister Barrow. Do we want that to happen now? Is this the best time given the economic situation that we're facing?
In the sugar industry, it's never the best time to have this type of situation in the industry. It's never, because it's sugar industry is not at the right footing right now. The cost of producing sugarcane is far above what farmers are getting paid. And the only reason why they are doing that is because somebody's buying the sugar cane.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's a cultural thing that is embedded in you. If you're not a cane farmer in the north, you don't feel like you're a Northerner. That is the pride of being a Northerner, right? Being a sugar farmer. I don't know if it's a good pride or bad pride, but that's the pride of being a Northerner, right? But it's not the right time, I agree. It's never the right time for this.
I mean,
Nevertheless, we have to be fair. And this is where sometimes we get in trouble, right? It must be fair to the farmer, but it must be fair to the miller. Look at the numbers. Do your research. Come up. What the farmers are saying to us, we met with them. We met with Santander too. What the farmers have great concern over the price of sugar. If Santander is paying me $54.56, paying their farmers that, having access only to raw sugar, having market only to raw sugar, but they don't have access to the local market, and they don't have access to the U.S. market, which is the highest paid market at this time. But yet they are paying the farmers better than what ASR is paying the farmers. There's something must be wrong. And farmers have all the right to inquire and to do their research. And so when they come to the table, they bring their facts and their numbers and say, look, this cannot be, right? So this is where...
Are you concerned though?
Oh,
that they're not
absolutely.
able to hammer out the deal
Of
before the
course.
start of the crop? We're talking
Of
2-3 months.
Of course. And
Could they?
our government is not the previous government. People have to understand that. Some people are difficult to understand that there's a new government and that things are not going to be what it used to be before. I will tell you something. We will not intervene to hurt the farmer. We will not intervene so that the farmer can hurt the industry. The police will not be out there killing any cane farmer. That will not happen. But we must reach a compromise. Again, it's not going to be easy. Swords are drawn, as a matter of fact. I mean, the first letter went out from BSCFA saying that they want to renew the contract. BSI and responded back that your intention is to they accused the association, they took it as offense, they wrote back.
Yeah, it's already started.
It's out there already, right? And the cane farmers are doing their wrongs on the different media houses, which is right. ASR is doing the same thing. Santander is looking on the outside saying, can I help? Right? They now would be a part of the sugar industry because they have to. They have to be a part of the sugar industry now. They have to be a part of the bodies, the sugar board, the SCPC. They have to be a part of that now. What role do they play? So it's a lot of work in the sugar industry in the next coming months. And again, we are getting the services of people to help us with that.
When is the act going to be finalized?
We hope to have that before the next SAFRA begins.
Okay. Is it a consultation? Have you met with all
Yes,
stakeholders?
we have a. There was a draft done in 2010, I think, by ICRA, headed by ICRA, sponsored by ICRA at Dolat Budram. We have that copy. We are reviewing it. They have formed a committee to go over that, to review it, and we will start to do. Right now, I think they're sending it to the different stakeholders. Look at it. What is it that you want in there? What is that you don't want in there? Right? And sending it to Santander, to ASR, to the cane farm associations, and looking at it to see what is it that they want included in there. At the end of the day, government will have the final say. We've consulted, but we can't put everything that you want in there. It's not possible, right?
Yeah.
So it's a long way, but we have that draft and we're working on that at this time.
Okay. All right. Well, we know that this will be an issue that we'll keep on discussing, and I do hope that there is a peaceful resolution that can be made, maybe even without the intervention of government at this point. You said that you've met with some associations and both millers at this time. That's
Yes,
where you are.
Yes, but
And you're
it's
simply
ongoing.
waiting to see, is there a point where you decide whether or not government will intervene?
We are intervening at this point, but in a passive, more guiding way, right? I have said some things to ASR which I believe was not right. You know, I think that if you are going to negotiate, you have to be respectful. Not because your farmers are unable to read and write, you will verbally abuse them, and the farmers have to be very respectful if we are to succeed in these negotiations. You cannot disrespect any of the parties. So we begin from that, and once we have mutual respect, once we can trust your figures, we start building confidence. But when you do something to mislead the farmers to believe that this is what your figures are, and later on you look and it's not the right figures, your figures were off, then it does not help the process. It worsens the relationship, right? And that is not good. And that is not good.
And, speaking on the same issue from a different perspective, Minister, we know that you made some comments that has caused a lot of upset in the public when you mentioned that stevedores need to get new jobs. Let me just, having had the time to reflect on it, seeing the comments that it has spurned, what do you say now about the comments that you made?
I think I've responded to that to the media some time ago, Marlene, but I will repeat again. I maintain that my comments were never meant to disrespect anybody. It was never meant to be rude to anybody. It was not said as a racial comment. As a matter of fact, Marlene, I went to a black university in America, Tuskegee University, founded by someone who grew up in a slave hut. And I chose to go there. I chose to go there. My best mentors, Dr. Nick Alvarez, is a guy from Stan Creek, Hopkins, and Dr. Edwin Martinez. They were the key ones to get me to that university, which I wanted to go. So I cannot never be accused of that. And I will not accept that kind of accusation, never. But again, probably the timing was wrong. People are sensitive to what you see now, especially from Belize City. But many times the truth again is never beautiful. The truth can be brutal.
Bitter pill.
It's a bitter pill to swallow. But we have to see sometimes what is truthful. People get offended. It was never meant to offend anybody. It was never meant to hurt anybody, to demean anybody, right? We went through the same situation in North once. The papaya industry closed down, Libertad factory closed down, and we had to find something else to do. The cane farmers in 78, when the price went down, had to flock to the mountains to do something else. So it's a bitter, harsh truth. We must find other things to do. There's no reason why we in Belize City, as Marlene said, in urban areas, cannot do agriculture. We are putting up a greenhouse next week here. When it's a high that us to. And I want to see the people of Belize City produce their own food. I would love to see that. The fact that we live in a city is not an excuse that we cannot produce our own food. We have to do so. We can do so. There is technology for it now.
As we stand at the moment, has BSI completely shifted its operations now to trucking overland sugar to Big Creek?
I think raw sugar, molasses is going through Big Creek. I think bagged sugar is still going to the port here. Okay.
Yeah. So they have operations at both?
Yes. Well, then one important thing that I should mention to you is the export of cattle.
Yes. There was an announcement made over the weekend of a recent
exportation, a shipment went to Mexico. That market is opening very well for us. The prices have gone up significantly to producers. We think we can further increase prices to producers by 15% once Minister Courtney is successful with lobbying with Mexico for the reduction of that tariff, which farmers are begging us to do. Then the farmers will see an increase in their prices. But up to now, our beef our carcass beef is now in Canada, which means that if we are to invest in a slaughtering facility that has the standards that's required, we can get it directly into Canada. We don't need Mexicans. Sorry to say that they have done the hard work for us, but we can do that directly. Once we have our USDA certified slaughtering facility. You don't have USDA certified, that's the one of the best. But once it's certified, we can do so.
Yeah.
And up to now, Marlene, the figures I got from our office is that 37,718 head of cattle have been exported since November to September. This is a generation of probably $36.209 million. $36 million is a lot of money. The cane farmers share for this crop is expected to be $59 million. So cattle is pretty much reaching there, and there's room to expand. There's only beef cattle. When you consider pork, it's another amount. I think we're pretty much close to $60 million in the pork and beef industry. So it's a significant contributor to the GDP, and we want to maintain it that way. We have to be mindful that there are diseases out there.
Yes.
There are African swine fever right now. There's Newcastle in the south. There has been new diseases. So we're doing everything to protect our agriculture sector.
And the slaughterhouse, is that a plan that you have in place? You're seeking investors?
Yes.
It's very expensive. I think that's one of the things to be able to meet the health standards and the export standards of other countries.
Well, we have people right now that have expressed interest. What they want is to understand what our policy direction is.
Okay.
Right? Once we support it. For example, right now last week, there are the containers for the UHT equipment came in for Western Dairies milk. In other words, you will have UHT milk, long shelf life, box milk if you want to call it. So it came into the country this week. They are starting to put up the plant now. And again, the government creates the policy, it is the private sector that runs with it. We are saying we have opened up the markets to Mexico, we have opened up the markets to Guatemala. We need a slaughtering facility. I've seen a slaughtering facility, USDA standard, to slaughter 20 animals daily, I think for $1 million US, right? In Honduras. Prime Minister Brazilian, I visited that plant in Honduras. I'm certain that there are people out there who want to do it, but they want to know what is our intention, because you don't want to invest and have a white elephant out there, right? You don't want to do that. At the same time, Marlene, we are shifting, improving, and diversifying the genetics in this country for beef. We are doing artificial insemination this week in Central Farm with imported semen from, I think it's Brazil, of Brangus animals. Again, those genetics will improve the existing breeds we have in the country. And on the 17th and 18th, we are doing the first embryo transplants with embryos coming from Argentina. I think they will come into the country today. The embryos are coming to the country today. And these animals are Bradford. It's another breed of animal that has a high average daily gain. They have a high dress weight. And again, it's all benefit for the producers. And once we have these breeds, the countries that want these quality cuts can have it from Belize. Looking at our tourism market, right? So we have to improve that.
Well, you know, there's so much more that we can discuss, but we do appreciate you taking the time this morning to at least shed light on the conversations we had. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Sani. It's always a pleasure to be here.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be focusing on the situation of suicide in Belize. So please stay tuned.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.